factor is low, if it's not important to them, if it's not significant to them, let's just exclude them, regardless of how talented they may be, regardless of whatever level of intelligence or IQ they may have. If their care factor is low, let's get on and play the guy whose care factor is high. And it was always because I come to figure out what do good people look like. And for me, I'm going to skip the C and come back to it. But in regards to this acronym of care factor, the A is for attitude. I just realized people that care have really good attitudes. It's important to them. They're not of this woe is me mentality. I can't believe the chips are stacked against me. I love Chuck Swindoll's saying, and I brought it with me. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude is more important than facts, more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures and successes, than what other people may say or think or do. It's more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It's going to make or break a company, a church, a home, a team. But the remarkable thing we have every day is a choice regarding the attitude we embrace. We cannot change the inevitable. We cannot change the fact that people will act a certain way. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. And I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. If you have a great attitude, people will flock to you. If you have a bad attitude, the second they see you coming down the hallway, they will duck off in the bathroom to avoid you. You do not enjoy being around people who have negative attitudes. And the great thing is we have a choice. And I am convinced of that saying that life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react to it. It's why my admiration for certain people is so high. They overcame a whole bunch of difficulty, but they never allowed it to break them. And people with great attitudes are just, I'm attracted to. The R for me is resiliency. If you look up the word in the Webster Dictionary, resiliency is the capacity to deal with difficult circumstances. And then it says, semicolon, toughness. I admire tough people. For me, the toughest person I know is my mom. Tough is the ability to do the next right thing regardless of the circumstances. My mom, my dad made $100 a week. He made $5,200 a year in 1980. He was a preacher. And so he gave there. We were poor and didn't have much money. And my mother wanted us to have things. So she went and, with a high school education, volunteered at a school, but she got up every morning at 5:30. And she went not because she wanted to, but she was going to do the right thing on behalf of her children. And I've always said that's what tough is. It's the ability to do the next right thing. We're not always going to get this right. We're not always going to mess up. But how many times does one lie lead to another cover and another cover and another cover? And then we constantly, and you just go at the end of the day, you're not very tough. Because you couldn't even admit the ability to falter, but the ability to do the next right thing regardless of the circumstances. I tell the players all the time, the one thing we're told millennials lack are two things. One is focus. They said they last about 6 seconds. The ability to focus, mainly because Instagram and Snap, you can just scroll through and you can't concentrate. Now, Goldfish has the ability to focus for 7. And so millennials currently have 6. We're also told that they lack resiliency. That's the one thing that millennials lack. Maybe because they haven't had to endure tough things. Maybe they haven't been given. But as I tell our guys all the time, if a ball hits the ground, the ball comes back up. And the reason the ball comes back up is because it's got air in it. Hopefully you've got something a whole lot more than air in you. That when things fall, that you've got something on the inside, a core to you that allows you to respond to whatever difficult circumstances that is, and that's resiliency. And I'm not here to preach pie in the sky. My daughter has a disease that is not curable. It's an autoimmune disease, and obviously COVID has made us super conscientious about everything. But I'm not telling you that, hey, you have great attitudes and you have resilience. Things don't always go your way. My dad was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at 58. He died within 4 years. And these were difficult times, but there's a passage in James chapter 1, verse 2. And it says, hey, consider it joy when you undergo trials of various kinds, knowing that the testing of your faith is going to produce something. And it goes through a list of things that it produced. Consider, right? That's a thing that we have to think about. Consider is a thought that you do with your mind. And it says, consider it joy. It doesn't mean the trial is joyful. Anybody who's ever experienced a trial understands it's not fun. It's not fun for me losing my dad. It's not fun for me having to take hospital visits and watching my wife. She was on the phone this morning, and we've literally scheduled 6 of them this week for my teenage daughter. That's not fun. Trials are not fun. They're not enjoyable. But it says, hey, you need to think about this trial in the context of, yes, it's not going to be fun, but it is going to produce something down the road.